everyone know. So everybody in my room. So this is Ron. He's from the Duty Ron channel. He has his own YouTube and website. You need to go check it out. So it's DUTY Ron.
Uh,
Oh, we can't pin in here. I forgot when we have people. But my mods, if you could type in Duty Ron's name, that would be fantastic from YouTube. Ron was nice enough to invite me on for an interview the other night on his channel, and he goes on with Ed, and Ed is a forensic police
Yeah,
officer.
so we're both retired New York City police detectives. Ed is a forensic expert. He worked in the crime scene unit, so he's processed over 2,500 crime scenes in his time. So everything from murders to suicides to everything in between. So he's got a lot of experience, and he worked in the medical examiner's office as a DNA expert
Wow.
after he retired.
Oh,
So I was lucky enough. I didn't know him while we were working in the police department, but
oh.
we met on YouTube. He saw my show and he sent me a message and he was like, "Hey, let's get together." But
I did not
so
realize that. That's amazing.
yeah, we never crossed paths. We might have been at crime scenes together. They're processing, so they're like separate from us. So the crime scene processing unit, we didn't really have a lot of interaction with. But
Okay.
again, like I said, he's valuable to the community because everybody that's into true crime, they want to know about what's going on,
Right.
behind the scenes. So
And one of the, like, there was some big questions that whenever I went through the case, there was always questions that were popping up that I can't answer because I don't have your background. So when I
right.
got to come on YouTube the other night with you and got to ask some of those things, it was really interesting. I think the biggest kind of questions right now is like, what next for Ruby Frankie? Like, if she gets found guilty or if she doesn't, like, what happens? Do you know? Can you walk through kind of what happens with that?
Absolutely. So, first of all, your audience is great. I want to just say thank you to them for, a lot of them have subscribed and followed me on TikTok here. So, thank you to you guys, the viewers that are watching. Not just Julie, but all of the true crime people on, content creators on TikTok and Facebook and all over social media. So, kudos to you guys. Everybody wants to learn. As far as Ruby Frankie goes and Jody Hildebrand, there's a lot that's going to happen before any type of trial commences because they're going to look at all the forensic data. They're going to look at their all of their cell phones, computers, and all of that stuff. So all of that takes time because you have to get subpoenas from the respected platforms. Like if they want to get information from Facebook, we know that that's it sometimes can be difficult. You go to Apple, the iPhones are also, it takes time, is what I'm saying. So once they get all of that forensic details and data, we may see charges upgraded. We may see additional charges, and we may see additional people charged, depending on what their involvement is. If she was sending messages back and forth to family members, "Hey, I think I'm in trouble," or "Hey, this or that," then we may start seeing different things happening here. So this could take some uh, interesting twists and turns as the investigation progresses.
Right.
So we're not even they're probably not even halfway through all of their digital online platform footprints. These people were on the internet night and day, kind of sort of like how we are, right? But in a
Yeah.
bad way, showing their kids and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And God only knows what they were doing behind the scenes, what type of maybe business criminal activities they might be involved in. We always said in investigations, when you're walking through an investigation, it's like a hallway and you open up a door and then it leads to somewhere else. So
Yeah.
you never know what we could be looking at here, so.
And there's so much footage, like even just from the eight passengers. I know it's deleted, but I wonder if they can still
It's,
get the content from YouTube.
they
Like they
can,
must still be able to,
they,
right?
they can, they can.
And then
So
all the podcast garbage that Ruby and Jody were going through, and like they're gonna have to listen to all. Do you think it's gonna happen on October 5th? Do you think that they're going to be ready by then?
no,
I'm wondering too. I'm feeling like we're gonna have another motion saying that they're not ready and they need another extension.
the defense is going to file for another, for an extension because, like you said, there's so much data. There's so
Yeah.
much data for them, and to be prepared and have a fair and impartial, trial to commence, they got to be prepared. And if they're not prepared, they're not going to be able to go forward. And the judge is going to grant it. So, I wouldn't get our hearts set on seeing that start on October 5th. So,
That's what I was wondering too. Now,
yeah.
Ron, one of the interesting things that we talked about on your your podcast, basically your YouTube channel, Duty Ron, was the fact that the search. So when Ruby Frankie, the oldest daughter, contacted the police and said the neighbors are all saying my mom's gone, the kids have been alone for 5 days. They went and did a wellness check, see the kids in the window. The kids run upstairs to hide and they leave. They talk to the neighbors and leave. You said you guys would absolutely not have done it that way.
Right. So, I'm basing my experience on what I did as a police officer here in New York, and there was no way that we would have walked away from that, even if there was a young adult that looked like, because people are talking like, well, there was a 16-year-old or a 17. Um, that wouldn't have mattered because, again, if there's no parent there and you have a bunch of little kids running around, for this, as Ed and I were saying, it's the safety, exclusion comes in, the safety exception comes in. I would have actually kicked that door in and broke into that home if they didn't open. If they were like, no, we don't want to come, hey, come here, come here. No, oh, okay, stand back, boom, kick it right in. We would have supervisors there, and there would be some explaining to do. And maybe if they were aggressive like that, we wouldn't have been to where we were today, where we are now. So Jody Hildebrand wouldn't have been able to. Well, she was existing for 14 years, as we heard from her niece Jessie, talking about duct taping her and doing all this crazy stuff way back when, 14
Yeah.
years ago. But when she came forward, she was dismissed as crazy. Like, oh, the police or whoever she went to, they just dismissed her, and that's another issue. That's a whole other issue to talk about. But, each investigator has their own mindset, and like for me, I never took anything for granted. I always followed through on everything because I was worried also about my own responsibility. If I let somebody walk away from me that I had questions about, whether it was a kid or whatever the case may be, and I didn't do a full and thorough investigation, then it would come back on me because
Yeah.
they'd be like, hey, officer, you responded to this location, why didn't you do something? So I wonder what goes on in Utah. Like for me, no digs to the people in Utah. There's a lot of
Yeah.
great people there. But Julie, I said it when you were with us. I said, I'm not visiting Utah anytime soon or taking up residence there because the way things are going, like all these crazy cases that are in and around that area involving the Mormon extremists, just the extreme, not the, listen,
Yes. Yes.
like we
Exactly.
talk. I don't want to get everybody all riled up, but anything that's extreme, whether it's religion or anything, any extreme beliefs are dangerous, and I say
Yeah.
that all the time. So
I agree. And this definitely was extreme. Like they ended up with this like cult thing. Like when you watch the podcast episodes with Jody and Ruby when they're talking about distortion and truth and you get down this crazy deep podcast like I mean it's like a rabbit hole like you can't get out of and it's such garbage like when you listen to it. But they had so many followers. They had so many people that were believing it and buying into this and Jody with her therapy side of it and all of the couples coming out now saying like she diagnosed me with a porn addiction or all this other stuff like it's just
mm.
it's crazy it's insane that people followed them and listened to them so closely.
Jody was, when she was in her heyday, she was a wackadoo. I mean, she was hell bent on breaking up families. Now, there's all those thoughts of, where what her sexual preferences are, right?
Yeah.
To us as investigators, we don't even care about that.
Yeah.
What we look at is what crimes she's committed, what crime she has committed, and what we see right now is that torture and unlawful imprisonment and all things like that. These are some of the charges that I don't even hear people talking about. Like
Yeah.
it's all lumped into the child abuse charges and so forth. But I'd like to hear about what the district attorney is looking at in expanding those charges because there should be a whole slew of extra charges coming into play here for the many, many years. Like, okay, there's probably a statute of limitations for her niece, but what
Oh,
about all these guys that are coming forward and how they had their families broken up in the recent past?
right.
Where's when is it going to be their turn to come forward
Right.
and have charges pressed against her? So who knows what we could be seeing? And in this is like a twisted web, you know.
Now,
And
in the 911 call, you can hear Russell saying that Jody is the one that put the tape and stuff on him. If Ruby didn't put the tape and things on, she's still being charged with this because, and I know it said something in the wording of either, oh, thank you guys for the gifts. She said something in the wording about, or in the charges, it said something about cause or like basically didn't prevent. So she might not be the one that put the tape on, but she would still be held liable, correct?
absolutely, yes, yeah. Um, she's living there, or taking up temporary residence there. We know for a fact that for 12 or 13, 14 months, her and her husband Kevin were separated as per Jody, right? So was she traveling back and forth to the location 260 miles north of the location where all of this happened? And I'll give you an example. So I'm going to make this a condensed version, but I received a call when I was on patrol, and this is early 90s, so I'm showing my age here. Early 90s, I got a call, anonymous call from a person in a multiple dwelling building, apartment building. It was a housing development, and we call them housing projects back then. So it was a anonymous call for a child being abused. And my partner and I, it was a female at the time I was working with, we went to the location. A woman answered the door, and it was 1 o'clock in the morning. We didn't hear any kids crying or anything like that, but a woman answered the door, and she only opened it a little bit, and she had a drink in her hand, and she looked not right to me. And I said, "Is everything okay in here?" She's like, "Yeah, everything's fine." And she tried to slam the door on me. I put my foot in the door, and I kind of, back then you were able to be a little more forceful with
Right.
policing. So I kind of like nudged my way in the doorway, not into her apartment. And I saw a little boy sitting on the couch, and it was the middle of the summer. So it was like, I was soaking wet, sweating. It was like 90 degrees, but he had a blanket all the way up to his neck. So that like right away tipped me off, and I was like, "Can we come in? I want to see that. Who is that?" She said, "That's my son. He's fine." So she didn't want to let us come in. The emergency exception came in. I
Okay.
kind of like pushed her aside, and my partner was there with me, and she grabbed the woman and pushed her aside. And I asked the kid. I got down on my knees and I said, "Hey, buddy, everything okay?" And he whispered in my ear, "Help me."
Oh,
And
Ron.
and this little kid, he was only 7 years old. He had burn marks all over his lower part of his body. His mother was getting drunk and burning him with her cigarette.
Oh my
And
God.
and we wound up locking her up. And my point of the story, without getting into all the details, is that her grandmother was there. Her mother was there. She was 72 or 73 years old. We
Oh,
arrested her. We arrested her too. So we arrested the mom for burning the kid, but we arrested the grandmother for failure to report.
okay.
So
My God.
just an example for your audience there. And that's what I feel in Utah, what should have been done. They should have been aggressive when they were called. There was 15 different documented calls for service. Kids playing in the street,
Yeah.
unattended, kids home alone. One neighbor said called and said they were home alone for 5 days.
Yeah.
How, how do you not do a follow-up investigation to that? How do you get in your police car right away? That to me is appalling. So,
I don't understand that. And the fact that the two younger children would have been, what, 9 and 11, and the two middle children were all going to school all day and leaving the 9 and 11-year-old home alone with no landline, no cell phone if emergencies happened. And how are they feeding? Like, I can't
right.
wrap my head around it. And they just check, like, wellness check and left.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Crazy. And they should be held responsible for that, because they should either be retrained or taken off the job, because how many more children, like we could have had a tragedy on our hands here. If Russell didn't escape, and I said this on my YouTube channel, I believe that if Russell didn't escape, he would have died, and probably his sister would have died.
I
And who
believe that
knows
too.
how many more of those kids, because they were emaciated and they were being restrained.
Yeah.
And who knows what other kind of torture, psychologically, physically, that they were going through, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a sad situation. If that boy didn't get out, that 12-year-old didn't get out, we would have been looking at a tragedy.
I
So
think so too. I think so
yeah,
too. And probably
yeah,
not much longer. I mean, if who knows how long they had been that way, but to be that emaciated that the police were that worried, I mean, that
right.
says a lot.
Well, when we got together, what was that, last week when you were on the show with me? I discussed the subpoena for the medical records, right?
Right.
So they're still fighting. That's current in the news. They still haven't obtained the medical records. So the judge is telling the university or whatever the medical location, the hospitals, the pediatricians, they want all those records because they want to see if these kids were getting wellness checks. Were they,
Right.
like when I have, my kids are grown. So but when my kids were little, we used to bring them annually for a wellness check. You'd have to bring them for them to go to school. I know they were being homeschooled, but still, you know, younger kids have to go to the pediatrician for
Yep.
various different things. So
Yep.
they want to see the medical records and see what they were doing. Using cayenne pepper, and a lot of people argue about this, Julie, that,
Same.
oh, it's a holistic approach. I know I can't curse here, but get the out of here, with
Right?
that.
Yeah, I know. And
Such bullshit.
I've had the same arguments when I've posted about that. People are like, it's holistic and look it up too. Like it's not meant for children. It's not meant for open wounds. Like
Right.
who's putting them on like growth
When people,
burns?
yeah, when people leave those comments for me, I just tell them, go cut your finger, get a paper cut, and go put some cayenne pepper on it, and then check back with me. I think there'll be a lot of people that have a whole bunch of humble pie to eat.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. I agree. And I know honey has healing properties. When you have, handcuffs or ropes or whatever was around these poor kids' wrists
but
and the lacerations they got from that, honey and cayenne's not going to be
yeah.
helping that. Like that's
These are wealthy people. You can't go out and get some bacitracin ointment and get some first aid kit and use that. I mean, the kids had injuries from being held captive. so so we're not talking about the best people here. So but they had the means to do it. That was what people forget to realize is it's Jody Hildebrand's way of further torturing and inflicting pain.
yeah.
So her niece Jessie talked about the pain aspect and how she was duct taped every time she was talking to someone. She has a porn addiction. She's this and she's that and she's that. That was 14 years ago. She's graduated along the way. She's progressed to more evil and vicious things like attacking and hurting small little children.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I know. It's so hard to wrap our minds around. And I think that's why people got so invested in the situation. And because a lot of people like even grew up watching them on YouTube. Like I had so
yeah,
many people saying, I grew up watching them and I
yeah,
didn't watch them. I didn't know who they were until this all happened. But
yeah.
so many
Yeah.
people did.
You got such great people in your live chat that have some great questions and are talking about a lot of good stuff. I'm so in tune because I've been doing this so long to see and look at the live chat.
Yeah.
Um, some of our viewers have the best takes on some of this stuff. So kudos to the guys and girls in the chat.
Yeah, I agree. Do you guys have any questions for Ron that you wanted to ask? So this is Duty Ron for anyone that's just joining. Ron runs his own YouTube channel. It's called Duty Ron. And he's got quite a few posts about the Ruby Frankie situation as well as lots of other cases. He's a retired New York police, I keep wanting to
Detective.
say police detective, but police
Detective.
officer.
Police detective is right. It's not.
Okay,
I
good.
When I first started, I was a police officer. I got promoted to detective,
Okay.
and then it goes up sergeant, captain, lieutenant, captain. Um, you know, the funny part about all of this stuff is that what a lot of people forget is that our most vulnerable population are our children,
Yeah.
the folks that have mental issues or capacity, issues with caring for themselves, right? And then our elderly. And those are some of my biggest bugaboos, those three categories. And what you see with some of these people is that they prey on the people that they can control. That's not going to give them talk back.
Right.
You see Ruby Frankie's oldest son, he's out the door,
Yeah.
right? So she couldn't pull that spell on him. He left. So I would really love to hear the testimony that we will eventually hear from the two oldest kids, because they're going to have a lot of insight on what was going on in that family dynamic there. because they
Yeah.
got to see it. They got to see it, and they were like, "I'm out of here."
I think
So
that's gonna be the biggest, maybe even bombshell with the two of them getting on the stand and expressing what's been happening. And if you watch the videos, you can see that Chad had this like rebellious side. Like he wasn't, cowtailing to his mother the way some of the other kids did. So I
right,
wasn't surprised at all that he was out at 18 and he's just
yeah,
MIA right now. Like no interest in any of this at all. Like
yeah.
just out.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate, and I want to apologize to you too for not being able to come right at the time. And then when I
Oh,
did
that's
try,
okay.
so I got to figure out how to. I think I have it figured out, but when you were inviting me in, I was in my studio and it wouldn't let me come in. So, and then I
Oh.
saw you going into the battle, so I apologize for
No,
breaking up
that's
your
okay.
battle stuff. So, I don't know much about TikTok and how it
I
all
know
works,
you
but
will. We'll get you in here on. I'll
no,
get you in here
nobody
and then we'll
wants to
get
look
you
at
on there.
nobody wants to look at some old man talk about his police career.
Stop
I
it.
just up,
Everybody
I
does.
just I upload my videos from YouTube shorts onto here,
Yeah.
and I got like a little bit of success with it. I think I have 10,000 subscribers, whatever.
Yeah.
But but I concentrate all my efforts on YouTube because that's the platform where I'm most familiar with, and
Yes.
it's more engaging for me because I can actually invite up like 6 or 8 guests, and I know you can probably do it here too, I bet. But like for me, I like that whole setup over there, and it's how I do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. See, I'm not as familiar with the YouTube side, so I've got to kind of get the hang of that, and you'll get the hang of TikTok over here.
there you go. That
Yeah.
works.
Yeah,
That works.
exactly. So I squirreled there. Did anybody have any questions that you want to ask Ron? I find his police career very interesting. Isabella, it certainly is. Yeah.
Yeah, I responded to the World Trade Center September 11th attacks on our country, and I was there for the next 8 months doing, recovery, the bucket brigade at the site, and then also working at the medical examiner's office, recovering body parts and identification. So I was in the detective bureau when that event happened, when that tragic day happened 22 years ago. And the detectives, New York City detectives, were in charge of that crime scene. It was the largest crime scene in the United States on record, and we were in charge of that whole evidence and recovery process. And I was only there until April of 2002, but it was an unbelievable experience.
Can't even imagine.
And I'm just happy to be alive at this point. All of my friends and a lot of people, I've got different various illnesses from that, but a lot of
Yeah.
my friends have died from World Trade Center related cancer. So,
All the dust and everything else. I can't even imagine.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so Ron, there were some questions.
Okay, let's do it.
Hold on, I got to go back up where it was. Can mental health be used as a defense in this? Marta, I don't.
So in Idaho, which is not Utah, they do not allow the. So we're talking Lori Vallow now, right? From the Mormon, extreme.
Yeah.
Again, I have many good friends who are Mormon. Mike King from Profiling Evil, he is one of the good ones. And there's
Yeah.
tons and tons of good Mormons out there. I'm not saying they're all bad,
No.
but the state of Utah has the insanity plea. She could go that route, but you can't really. It's not really well. All right. Let me rephrase that. It's difficult to play that game if you truly aren't if you truly don't have mental defect. They
Right.
really put you through the rigmarole, so to speak. I'm trying to talk in layman's terms here, but they really put you through a battery of tests where they can see if you're trying. Like, I don't trust me, and I don't know Ruby Frankie or Jody Hildebrand personally, but I
Yeah.
don't think that they could fool them. I'll tell you why. Because there is so much data on them from their connections, from her YouTube videos, and
Oh.
all of her social media footprints that can dispel her bullshit, her BS. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I stopped myself
No,
from
you can
cursing.
say, yeah, you can say that.
Okay.
Somebody else just said, do you think they're both going to get life in prison? Do you think there's enough evidence against them?
So I'm not an expert in Utah statute, and if you know about me, the statutes in each state vary. I know you're from Canada, um, but here in the United States, there's different statutes for different states. So I always go to the experts when people ask questions like this. So my thing is that if it's allowed by the statute, if she is convicted of six multiple felonies, right?
Yeah.
Some states allow you to have them run consecutively and then concurrent, and some of them do not. So I don't know about Utah statute. If you really want to answer to that question, I would Google what the Utah statutes are and those charges. If they're found guilty of each one of those charges, then you look at that. Some people I've heard argue that they don't allow it and it's just going to be one 20 or 30-year sentence. I don't put credence in that. What
Yeah.
I would do is go to a law website, and each state has its own penal code. It's the penal law, and you could go to each state, go to Utah, and look at their penal law, and it will tell you what the max sentence is for
Right.
these crimes, and that's the best way to do it. And I don't ever like to give answers. I'm not an expert. I'm not an attorney. I just know how to lock people up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You know how to catch them.
I lock them up. I give them to the district attorney, who they are all attorneys, and I let them take care of it. So that's what detectives, role in this whole thing is. So,
Yeah.
but thank you. That was a good question.
Kristen just asked, do you think both older kids will have to testify? I think so. I think they'll both be subpoenaed.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
100%.
What
Listen,
did you
I
think?
I
Oh,
just came off a trial in California in Bakersfield, a no-body double homicide of two little babies, 3 and 4 years old. They never found their remains. They were the parents, the adoptive parents today, Trezell and Jacqueline West, were sentenced. They were found guilty. They were sentenced to 15 years to life in the murders of their two adoptive kids, 3 and 4 years old. There was children who testified. Their own biological children, 11 and 12 years old, testified in court against their parents.
gosh. So 11 and 12, they could get up on the stand in front of everyone?
In in California, in
Oh,
California, they're allowed. You know, it varies from state to state, but they were called as witnesses and they testify.
oh, wow. I
And
thought what would happen is that like a psychiatrist would interview the kids and then
they
some
do,
maybe the
they
kids will
do.
testify too.
Psychiatrists interview the kids during the investigation, but once the trial commences, that investigation that is part of the detectives who work the case and the prosecutor, then they take that and then the prosecutor subpoenas them and calls them in as witness. That's how
Yeah.
it goes.
Katie's asking, what did you do to become a detective?
So I took a civil service exam to become a New York City police officer. So when I became a police officer, it was 1991. I'm showing my age. Yes, I'm 59 years old. Um, but I took the test in 1991. I passed the test, scored a 95. I got put into the police academy. I went on patrol. I worked patrol, and then I got into an investigative unit. And to become a detective, you earn it through your investigative skills. So I got promoted at about year 8 or 9 into my career. So I patrolled for about almost a decade, and then I got into the detective bureau, and then I finished my second half in the detective bureau. Good question.
See Giggles comments? Nicely done, Giggles. Nicely done.
Oh, there's my friend Emily Hunt. Duty Ron, please ask Duty Ron where's his Hello Kitty stuff. I do have Hello Kitty stuff. It's not in here. I'm drinking my nightly cup of coffee in here, but I do
Aw.
have I do have kitty stuff somewhere here in the
Emily's
studio.
got the inside scoop.
She's from YouTube, so some of my YouTube people I guess, got some kind of notice that I was live.
They probably follow you on your TikTok too, so that you would pop up that you're
Oh
live, so they
yeah,
can come check it out.
I didn't even think that. I have ten
Yeah,
thousand or so subscribers on TikTok. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
there we go.
Guys, make sure you follow Duty Ron on his Instagram, or on his TikTok, sorry, but also go over to YouTube. That's where he does all of his chats and everything's posted there. If you want
So
to check the chat out that Ron and I did, it's also on there, and I have it saved on my YouTube as well in the like community section, I think is where it is.
Yeah, Katie Black said so. He's not forensics. So I worked in the Fugitive Enforcement Division. So I went and hunted people down that were on the run, that had felony warrants, people who have murdered people and went on the run. I worked with the U.S. Marshals Task Force. So we were embedded with the Marshals in fugitive enforcement. So I worked in fugitive. I supplemented homicide investigations. And no, not all detectives are forensic detectives. Ed Wallace, my co-host, is an is a forensic expert, and he is a badass. I mean, he knows
So much
everything
knowledge.
about DNA. How do you get DNA from a tooth in the pulp of the tooth? Like he can go through. I mean, he'll make your head spin. So if you want to see that, go over to my YouTube channel, subscribe, and watch Ed and I. We did a show just last night on Suzanne Morphew, mother of two, who went missing in
Saw that.
on Mother's Day in 2020, and they just recovered her remains. And he talked about the skeletal remains, about if there's hair still left underneath the fingernail or fingernails, how you can get DNA, tooth pulp. We covered the whole gamut, everything last night. So it was pretty cool.
I just did a post on my page here about her this morning when I saw that.
I've been
Crazy
covering that case
research.
since 2020. I've been covering that case since the day it broke.
Have you?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you think she'd be recovered?
I didn't think she would ever be recovered because there was rumor that the husband put her through a wood chipper.
Oh
So
God.
that was one of the rumors, and the vast areas, the mountainous areas in and around where she resided, there was
Yeah.
just so many places to put her. And so many opportunities to move. So like people were saying, "Oh, Duty Ron, do you think that Suzanne Morphew was killed or at that place where she was found?" And my answer was no. She was killed somewhere else and dumped there. And there's a possibility that a lot of these killers, they'll move their victims because they'll get scared and they'll think, "Oh, someone's close," and they will take them and move them, the remains. That's we see that a lot. So I have a feeling that she was moved to multiple locations. That was not where he originally dumped her. So
Uh, and do you
yeah.
know how far she was from the bike trail?
So she was from where her bike was found to where she was recovered was 40 some odd miles south of
That's
where.
crazy. That's crazy.
I showed on my show last night the actual distance on a map.
Okay.
So yeah, you could go and look Maysville to that location where she was recovered, and they weren't even searching for her. They were searching
Yeah, for
on
something else,
another.
like just a
They were
fluke.
on another investigation that they didn't tell us what it was. It doesn't matter. Who
Yeah.
cares what that investigation was? It led them to her remains, which we're all thrilled about it. So
Now, do
it's
you think the
hard.
husband did it?
So it's just my opinion,
Yep.
obviously. I, I do. I do think that he did it because I look at the totality of all the evidence. And I mean, look, for every case that I cover on YouTube, I have my case files,
Yeah.
right? So this is the case for the boys that were
I am the
right.
same, but
So
I'm so not organized. You're all organized. I
I,
love it.
I have it all organized. I mean, this looks like maybe disorganized, but I keep every ounce of all of my investigations. So this is one of my cases
I
of
love
notes,
that. That
right?
is so
Yeah.
smart to file it because I literally have to dig through that to find my case notes.
Hold on.
Oh, I love it.
Color coded. I have
Oh
them
my God, I
color
love it.
coded, right? And
Yeah.
my co-host Ed Wallace, the crime scene, he has a book, a hardcover. Where is it?
Oh.
So this is Ed's book on crime scene and investigations.
Oh, wow.
He gave this to me, signed it, and said, "Your assignment is to read it from cover to cover." I read it, so that means I am a forensic expert, but I'm not
There
certified.
you go. Yeah. That's how it works, Ron. That's right.
Yeah, I'll put it up close. Can you guys see the title? Hold
Yeah.
on, where is it?
Crime
Where is
scene
it?
investigation. Yep.
Yeah.
Does that say fourth
So
edition?
yeah, and he is Ed Wallace.
Oh my gosh. Very cool. So that's a textbook, I'm assuming, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He
Uh,
teaches for the Department of Defense. He goes all over the world and teaches forensics to, all different countries and all different installations from the U.S. Military. So he's a badass, Ed Wallace.
yeah,
So,
it really
but he
is.
won't come on TikTok. He doesn't.
Yeah, we
I
were
won't
saying
get
that.
into it. I
He's
won't
got
get
something
into it.
against TikTok.
I won't get into it, but he won't come on TikTok.
Well, Ron, this has been absolutely fascinating, as always. I would love to have you back up another time, though.
Yes, absolutely. Anytime. Listen, I appreciate that you came and hung out with us. And,
I
you
loved
felt
it.
like, oh, what do I have to give to this? Well, I said it, Julie, when you came and joined me. I I don't just like to give our perspectives, although that's what our show's about. It's
Yeah.
true crime from a police detective's perspective. But what I like to do is mix it up and bring in folks like yourself that cover these topics, these true crime topics. And I want to say this, so this is not tooting your horn. I was impressed with the way you present your stuff because you're clear and concise and you're right to the point with your pointing of your fingers to everything and showing
Thank
everything.
you.
I was impressed with it. And I see hundreds, literally hundreds, or maybe arguably thousands of people that do this on TikTok. And I don't reach out to all of them. I just thought, wow, she's pretty cool. Let me see if
Thank
she can come
you.
on. And so that's how I did
That
that.
means a lot. Thank you very much for that, Ron.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keep on doing what you're doing, and always try, like you said, you want to get onto YouTube. I think that's a good thing because you could do both. You could do both.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to.
Mm.
I'm definitely going to. I just gotta bite the bullet and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, and I'm sorry that I came late and
No,
that
that's okay. It worked out just great.
yeah.
Guys, make sure you go follow Ron if you haven't yet. Just click the plus button right down by his name and make sure you check us out on YouTube. So it's Duty Ron on
I
YouTube.
want to say one more thing.
Sure.
So I saw one chat, and I don't know who it was, one chatter in your chat that said, and whoever it was, thank you. Hey, he doesn't look too bad for 59. Yeah, it's part of my genetics. I have decent skin. I think that's what it is. Like I'm not all old and wrinkly yet, but I'm getting there. So
I don't think you're getting there yet, Ron. No.
it's all good.
Hi,
Thank
Sherry.
you. Thank you, Julie, and thank you to all your
Thank you
subscribers and
so
your
much.
friends.
Thank you again for coming up.
All right. See you soon.
Okay, have a good night.
Bye.
I love Ron, you guys. So if you haven't, guys, go check out Duty Ron on YouTube. He has a fascinating channel, tons of coverage. I did a post this morning about the lady he was talking about that had been missing for 3 years. He just said that he's got a post on his YouTube that covers all the forensic side of it and what would be going down with it. So it's definitely worth checking out. Isn't he awesome, Ash? I know, he's fantastic. I've known Ron forever. Emily, welcome. I love that. He is the nicest man. Right? Yeah, that guy, he's awesome. Oh, Carly, you're sweet. Carlene, thank you. All right, guys, it is 9. I have got to get off. I have to go make lunches for work tomorrow and get to bed. Thank you so much to everyone joining tonight. Thank you to my mods for keeping it sane in here. Night, guys, and I will hopefully see you tomorrow night. If not, I will be on in the weekend. Night.